Kevin, are you here? All right, cool. Technology and machine learning has been around for a long time.
Absolutely, yeah, 34 years. Yeah.
Judy Saltpeter and
Yep, who continues to run our events that we have around the country, and my mentor.
she was also my mentor. Great person. So, Robin.
So I thought you could do me one favor and start with, I believe raters are good, I believe people are better. So at CES, we run 2 contests, one called The Last Gadget Standing, where a team of expert judges pick 10 finalists, and then the people vote on them. And we also do the same thing called with apps, and it's called the Mobile App Showdown. Warren, either you can go to it on your machine, or I can go to it, but I can go to mobileappshowdown.com. And I want to show you what happens when people are asked to rate. So there were 10 apps presented, and the only instructions to the contestants are to go for the wow factor, to wow the audience. The only instructions to the audience is pick an app that will change the way we do something and last. It won't just be a flash in the pan. I have it up here. Do you want my machine?
Nah, I got it. You got a lot of press.
Oh my God. Yes. Incredible.
Is it?
Just go to mobileappshowdown.com to, yeah.
Is it 2 S's?
Yeah.
I think you typed it in wrong.
There.
What is it?
We'll get her.
And if you go to, scroll down to the bottom, there's a movie clip on the lower right. Keep going. All right, that one, yep. So I want to show you an app demonstration live to kind of set the framework for this conversation.
How come you gotta move it over? Okay, it's okay.
Everyone. So this app really impressed everyone on the panel because it does something really, really simple, effectively. And that's, it takes a handwritten mathematical application, a handwritten mathematical equation, and it instantly solves it right in front of you. But it doesn't only do simple equations, but it also can do really complex ones. But as cool as it is, the truth is that this app actually hurt me because it works better than I ever did in high school. And here to talk about and Dennis Metsu.
That's your name.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Fernando Ritt. I'm the marketing director of Visionomics, and it's a great pleasure to be here today to present my script calculator. A little word regarding the company Visionomics. We're the world leader.
You can all beat this, right? You can do this faster. You get the idea. So these guys went on to do some demos in real time. Of course, I took this app to the restaurant the next day and tried to calculate the tip. It took me so long, but it's a great example of a wow, and a wow that people who would have thought a scripting calculator would have won over crazy mind meld apps and t-shirts with QR codes and a whole bunch of crazy things, but there was a wow factor to that people felt they could use, and I always like seeing what the real reaction is, as well as the professional tester's reaction that see tons of things every day. So I'm gonna use that as the people's choice, and you're welcome to go to the site and see the other things. And I think every rater has the responsibility to think like the audience that they serve when they're reviewing something. So I thought we'd go through the panel and sort of ask, A, what goes through your mind? What's the list that you make in your head when you're rating a product? And 2, what are some of the things that you're looking at most seriously for this upcoming season?
Start with Chris.
Okay, Chris.
Is the cordless mic around? Yeah.
What goes through your mind, Chris?
What goes through my mind, first
I
of all,
got it.
is when I open up the app, that it's a wow factor, immediate wow, that it grabs my attention, and that it's easy to get into. I think that's one of the biggest things, working with my students, that we review the apps in the classroom as soon as they come up. The kids will right away, as Warren said before, the home button is very quick. If it doesn't come up right away and have that wow factor, have that easy to get into, and then the follow through once they're into it, can they figure out how to go, how to make the next move? Can they have open-ended? Can they go to wherever they like to go with the app? That it's not a controlled app for them. And it's funny because you have the My Script. As soon as that came up last week in my classroom, I put it on, I handed it to the kids. They were able to figure it out right away. And they just loved it. And that was 5- and 6-year-olds that went, okay, well, if we change 4 plus 8 to 4 times 8, then what do we get? And it's going back and forth, and that's part of our math curriculum. And that's what I also look at, apps that come across. That would look to be something for a teacher direct early on, but then also what other apps can I present the kids that are teacher directed, like a number grid, 100 grid, and then hand it to the kids and let them go off on their own. That it's not just me being in control, it gives the kids control.
So do you find your kid raters, is it a unanimous thing? Everybody likes it, or is it some people hate it, some people like it? Is it the general?
The general is that it's usually a majority like it when we're looking at it. Whether I think it's going to be a 4 or 5-star rating or if I think it's going to be dust. I look at how the kids interact with it and what their general. I always ask them, so what do you think? What did you like about this? What did you like about this? And you can tell the ones that the kids really, and we've said Tokaboka a number of times already, those are the ones that the kids will go back to whenever they have their free choice of when they want to pick and choose some different things. And you can talk to them about what it is that they like. And it goes across all ages too. I mean, that's the other thing I'm looking at. It's not just, I teach kindergarten, but I work with kids from all different grades, and whenever I'm reviewing an app, I want to get the opinion of adults, of parents, of middle school, high school kids. We had another app that Warren and I talked about, that's a free app, Flow, and that came across. I put it onto the iPad just to see how some of the kids would interact, and it was amazing. You could, as a teacher, you can look at them and you start to understand how the kids are thinking. And that's what your goal is as a teacher, is to be able to have some tools so that you can look at a child and say, okay, this is their thought process, and I need to tailor my education, my instruction based upon their thought process. And good apps allow me to do that. And Flow was one that my kindergarten kids used, Warren's high school band kids, they were using it on the bus. My son, who's a sophomore in college, I come home one day after school, and there he is sitting with it on his iPhone, playing the same thing. It goes across age groups. So.
Thanks. So one last.
Okay.
So are you the tastemaker for your school's app selections,
I think as with,
Mr. Appman?
well, I think as with working with kids, as you asked the question before, is a majority. I think within a classroom, a teacher is an individual too. And so I try and suggest apps to people, but they have to feel comfortable with it. They have to have, with their curriculum and the materials that go into their classroom, they have to take ownership of it. So I recommend things, and I do training for teachers in schools, but the bottom line is they need to be the ones that feel comfortable with it.
I think that as raters, and I want you all to talk, that's the toughest problem, is not just saying it's good or bad, but who is it good for and why. So why don't you pass the mic to Jim, and tell me about rating.
Yeah. Well, so at Yogi Play, I set up a rubric to try to structure what we do so that there's some consistency and it's research-based as much as possible. So the basic division is engagement and then learning. So is it going to grab their attention? Is it going to hold their attention? Should they use it? Are there concerns that a parent might have? So it's not just for a 5-year-old, it's also for the whole family. So that's part of how the context, how it's going to be used. And then I think about the structure of the activity. Is it coming from the child and the motivation as well? So is it an open-ended, intrinsic sort of thing, or is it more extrinsic with gamification, with behavioral principles? Both are good in different ways, so I've not taken a stance to say, I think we should only have constructivist learning out there. I try to evaluate if it's done in a way that is, like Picky Teacher, in a very traditional mode, and the finger is wagging. Is it done in a good way? Does it, for example, provide feedback that's immediate and informative? Does it help kids become better learners? There's work, Carol Dweck has done a lot of work about the kind of praise you give kids. So if it's an app that says, you're smart, that gets fewer points than if it's something that helps kids reflect on how they've done what they've done and their strategy. So
Carol Dweck, D-W-E-C-K?
right.
Wikipedia her, she's good.
The
Read-
growth
Dweck.
mindset, how you think about your own thinking has a big effect long term on whether you feel empowered to be smarter, as opposed to thinking that you're born with something and then you have to either defend that you're really smarter than you know you really are, or vice versa. So that's the psychology of it.
And so, tell us a little bit about ePlay. So do you get 4 stars, or do you get an A+, or is there a schema that you make as a quick study for somebody looking for apps for discovery?
Well, on Tuesday I'm going to present some of the details of this, but we have in the rubric, there's I think 11 criteria altogether. So for the engagement part that I talked about, and then for the learning part, I think the things that I look for that are especially interesting is there a sense of deeper learning? So if you're talking about math, there's nothing wrong with learning to quote 1 through 10, but if you're taking your actual fingers and touching the screen, and you touch the 3 fingers, and the number 3 shows up, and then it's represented in the same way, then that gets points for deeper learning. And the last one I would say was authentic. So is there something in the app that helps kids directly relate what they're learning on screen to the rest of what they do? So some apps do that really well, and some apps can do one of those things very, very well and not do the others, but that still should be rated highly. So the way I look is across this whole different 11 categories, and there's a few that do everything really well, but very few.
And how are you dealing with rating aggregators of apps, which I think you're seeing a lot of aggregators now, and I'll ask the rest of you, so sort of channels for kids, if you will. Are you looking at that?
Yogi Play doesn't rate those, but I think I mean, in a way, Yogi Play is that, and
right.
Common Sense Media is that, and Warren is that, and Smart Tots is that. So there's a big need for it. And
You guys are going to rate us, so that's what that is. And then we're going to actually rate you on how you rated us. So it could be really interesting.
Yeah. It's
First time that's ever been done.
Uberose.
Because we rate everything, right guys?
That's right. If it can't be rated, it's not worth living. Right, Claire?
Right.
So Claire has a message about rating and rates many products and has seen thousands of products. And I think through it all comes up with a message that resonates well. So hit it.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Claire Green with Parents' Choice. We've been around since 1978, and there are really about 4 principles that guide us through what we do. Not shown here. We believe that children are born scientists and musicians and linguists and artists. And we believe that whether it's a toy or a magazine, a television show, or an app, that we want those materials to encourage the questions that kids ask naturally, the probing, the thinking, and they do that so well. We want to spotlight materials that do that. We believe that kids learn through play, both inside and outside the classroom. So in essence, we look for products that bridge the classroom and the playroom. It's our responsibility to help children learn to think a little bit differently, to see a little bit differently, to get a new perspective on things, and that can be done by using a crayon of a different color to color the sky. It doesn't, the medium doesn't matter. But that's what we want those products to do, to inform that. And we want ways to help kids think and learn and be creative and grow beyond, not in replacing, but beyond the traditional skills of reading, writing, and arithmetic. And above all, we believe that learning is fun, and we want kids to know that.
Thank you. There. Why don't we do it this way?
Okay.
So I'm going to give you a slightly different question. I was trained by, actually, Bill McCrone, who was the editor of PC Magazine. Then I became the editor. And Bill used to say to me when we tested PCs and graphics boards and SQL servers, he said, if you can't find a difference, get a better microscope. And I would say, Bill, at some point the microscope becomes irrelevant. Who cares whether your PC opens Adobe Photoshop 1/4 of a second faster than it does? And that's a question I think reviewers and raters have to deal with. When does the rating and schema just become ridiculous and we have to just look at the magic that happens? And so I'd love you, Kevin, to address, you've seen so much and rated so much over the years. How do you guys deal with that?
Well, I mean, there's been a real evolution on the way that you look at technology and how you value technology, whether it's in a business place or in a school. And even when, I guess, I got into the education part of technology in about 2004, and we were still doing speed and feed tests on printers, you know, and how many pieces of paper come out, and then you get a gold star because of that. But from that point to now, and especially on the software side, when you look at apps, and that just does no one any good to know, you know. You're talking about the one, I mean, I'm learning a lot here this morning in terms of the wow factor and the one push and the one touch. I mean, those are kind of speeds and feeds to a degree. But I think that the way that our reviewers are our readers. We have 100,000 educators, from superintendents down to classroom teachers, who read us every month. And then we have 160,000 people who visit techlearning.com online, and then we have people who come to our events. And we're really just an aggregate of those people who are now reviewing. That's the other thing. We used to actually pay people to review products for us, right?
Yes, I remember those
Yeah,
days.
right? And now there's no need for that, really. All you have to do is kind of dip into your channel and see what the most innovative people that we use to make us look smart are reviewing it for us anyway. I mean, that's the Yelp or the Travelocity sort of model of software reviewing. So we just kind of dip into our Twitter feeds, we dip into other things and see what people are saying, like, hey, this is a cool app that I just did.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit on something. Reviewing and rating has changed tremendously. The next question to you is, there's this much larger discussion than any single app going on in education about big data. If 1 million kids use an app and get to the same place and don't get any further, what do we learn about the app, the child, the school district, the teacher? And do you look at the big data behind what's going on, and what's your sense of things there? What do you see happening?
I think that's one of the biggest obstacles to actually having the things that you are developing actually getting into schools and improving not only the students' learning experience, but also the assessment of that experience. So there's a gap there between all these great, cool apps that kids learn, but then you have to deal, especially with the public school system, you know, where you're talking about having to come back with metrics, having to come back with percentages and pie charts on growth and literacy and you know, all those other wonderful acronyms. And so you have a company like Pearson, where I'll go to a product demo at ISTE, and there'll be the same number of people who all work for Pearson and all have 10 different products that they've acquired over the past 5 years, and they don't know each other. So there's no...
Anybody here from Pearson? No.
So go right ahead.
I always get myself in trouble. But I mean, a lot of great stuff, you know, great products, but aren't necessarily talking to each other or tying it into their big data products like a Power School. So it's, you know, there's a real disconnect there that has to be somehow knitted together.
How many of you watch or read EdSurge? So EdSurge looks at the, basically where the VC money and the financing money is going in the education industry right now. And there's a huge disconnect between what goes on in this room and what goes on in that world that needs to be brought closer together. So EdSurge, you really should read it and see some of the brilliant ideas that are being funded and how it's all going to tie into the school more. So thanks for that perspective. Renee comes from the toy rating perspective and has reviewed, you can see her just about every toy fair in every country across the globe, looking at play patterns and what's changed. So Renee, why don't you give us an overview of what you've seen and what you think is coming this year on the toy front?
Well, basically I go to about 2 or 3 dozen conferences a year, always looking for what is it that will have the impact and the trickle-down effect for kids and families. So at the CES show, I'm looking at all these new TVs and all the in-vehicle technology and the connected devices, and that, you know, you're using your connected device at home, and as you walk out to your car, it automatically syncs to your car, and suddenly it's working in your car. Well, toys are going to need to reflect that same play pattern because kids mimic what they see the people in their life doing. So within 18 months, a lot of kids' toys now are going to have some of that technology in them. They're going to be using flexible glass. They're going to be using all these different things. So I look for, when I rate or review a toy, I have a lot of physical toys in what I do as well. So I'm not just looking at apps. I'm looking at...
She pulls out a bag of tricks.
My bag of toys. You know, the LeapPad tablet for kids, you know, the LeapPad 2. This was one of the best-selling toys in the toy industry last year. Again, yes, there were a lot of tablets sold, regular tablets that families use, but there's something about a kid having their very own tablet that they can call their own, that they could then play with, take care of, that what they do want it is theirs. They feel empowered. So I look for toys that are going to empower kids. They're going to help them, challenge them, have them learn something new, have them challenge the other people in their lives, learn something that maybe they don't think the adults know. Teach the adults something about technology they don't know. So this product, you know, has a place. It's age appropriate. The learning on it is age appropriate for kids from, 3 to 9. Yeah, some people may decide to give their kid an iPad instead. But many parents are deciding to give their kids their own device, and for $99, it's very. And what's cool about this one is that it's the learning is appropriate. Kids are if they're at a certain reading level, it rates their reading level and then builds with them. It skill levels right to the child. So that's an example. There were also. The Curio tablet, form factor, just like your regular Nook, etc.
Renee.
Android, you know.
What gets in your bag? I don't want to see what's in your bag.
Yeah.
So what criteria?
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah, it's what gets in the bag is things that are going to empower kids, that are going to give them an opportunity to play, that are going to engage other children with them. So it's not just individual learning, but it's how are they going to engage with the world around them? How are they engaged with other children? So it's...
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, those are part of the things that I look for. You know, what's going to be, and also what's going to be, they're going to be seeing other kids playing with it. They're going to want to play with too, to learn.
What doesn't get in your bag?
What doesn't get in my bag are watch me toys. Stuff that you put on the table, it does something, you watch it once, it's done.
Like Dora over there, Elmo.
Yeah, a lot of these products that really don't engage a child other than maybe making them laugh for a few minutes, but it's going to end up at the bottom of the toy box, the end of the landfill. Those products don't make it past.
What did really well this holiday season?
Some of these tablets did really well. Skylanders did really well.
Beyblade.
It was, Beyblade did well, spinning tops. There were some doll categories that did well, some which I completely don't understand why they do so well. Like Monster High is a very unusual category of products, but the reason why it does well is because it taps into vulnerabilities. So it taps into intrinsic play patterns, which are okay, I'm a little different than everyone else, but now I can embrace that. I'm different, but I'm vulnerable in a certain way. Somebody else is different and vulnerable in a different way. So it makes life real and authentic. So those are the things that's really going to encourage a child to try something new, keep learning, and have fun.
And how many people are here from, I'll call it large toy companies? Hasbro, Mattel, Disney. Nick,
Oh.
what do you see happening there? I mean, Scott pointed out yesterday that in fact, despite the money that the larger companies are throwing at virtual worlds, it's the smaller companies that came sort of out of nowhere that are garnering market share. So what did you see over the holidays with Hasbro, Mattel? Are they just like crying somewhere now?
Well, it's interesting because they're looking for acquisitions right now, obviously. They're looking to acquire some of the smaller companies that are doing a great job. So when you do a great job at what you do, then people are going to take notice and they're going to either copy what you're doing or they're going to buy you out. But there's a lot of people that want to continue what they're doing because they're great at it. And, you know, that's part of it too. So I can't really reveal what Hasbro and Mattel are doing in the future because it's all embargoed until February. I'm sorry, Toy Fairs. So all the new stuff is embargoed, but they're moving into more technology applications. Even for the youngest children, Fisher-Price did announce at CES they have more activity toys that tie to play patterns, you know, with using the devices. One thing I don't like is when they're using a device that would be much better played using a physical product. You know, if you have cars riding along the top of your iPad, to me, I want those kids crawling on the ground, playing with a play mat, or in the mud, or in the dirt, or something, playing with those cars, not on top of a glass iPad, you know, where they might crunch it down, because that's part of your play pattern. Crash and bash play pattern is part of vehicle play. If you crash onto that iPad, you're going to break the glass. So those types of play patterns don't resonate with me.
So Warren, we saw a lot together of, I'll call them iPad peripheral add-ons. Wowie comes to mind with their Artsy. Has anybody seen the Artsy? It's a picture frame you put around the iPad that turns it into a draw. You draw something and actually it then animates it. Kind of clever. I didn't spend a ton of time drawing with it. But you're seeing all of these add-on things. What's your thought on how those are going to be rated?
There's a lot of dust in that space. I think it's interesting, but I think at the end of the day, the most direct route to, I said this yesterday, like for drawing your finger or moving something quickly, kids want a good stylus, a good rubbery stylus. We have the one that we really like, AppCrayon, I think it's called. It's just a simple stylus. It costs about $6, and the app basically drives the experience. But this is a new space, and I think it's really early to tell.
Say just a little bit about the eye-infused toys, please. I don't understand. I honestly don't understand why someone would put an iPhone or an iPad inside a stuffed animal. Can anybody say why? Why? And you're supposed, this is to what? It doesn't watch the digestion. That would be interesting.
No, but it does. It protects your iPhone
Oh,
from slobber, you know, and it protects it from being hit. We saw a baby stroller that has an iPhone recharger and it's run by the pushing it, and it's got a GPS and an odometer also. So it's a self-charging stroller that powers your iPad, which I thought was just brilliant, actually. Might as well get something out of all of this.
charging. I like
yeah.
that part, but I like the disconnect. If you're going to walk your child in a stroller, Jack, what do you think? Put the screens away. Say, ooh, there's a bird. Listen to the bird. It's not an ATM machine, it's a bird. It's not a car alarm. It's something else. Listen to it. Put the screen down, please.
It does have 3 screens on your stroller to watch. That is one of the problems.
I'll channel some of our writers who never want to put their screens away as an argument to that. And one of them is the app where you can take your iPad outside and you say stare at the stars.
Right, no, I
But when you
understand.
stare at the stars,
Right, I understand that, but I think that there is a time where you need to pay attention to your
Star
child
Walk.
on its screen. Star Walk, Solar
Yeah.
Walk.
Yeah. And one thing I want you guys to know is that this whole Duster Magic started because a bunch of editors got together and argued for 3 days, and with good wine, and the conversation was so wonderful, but we don't always agree. And one outlet might see something very different, and so this arguing or this discussion is chewing it over, it's disequilibration, and it helps us sort of become more valid, and we might see something from a different view. And so everyone's got a different take on this, and it's important to understand that. And I also want to say that the state of the art of when we give a rating and we try to quantify something is very incredibly slippery. I think we'd all agree. And interactive media product is 3D. You can't really just drop a number on it. It's like dropping an IQ number on a kid. But we've got this backdrop, that reliability and validity. The App Store gives you thousands of ratings. Amazon.com accrues thousands of ratings. I want to be valid. I want CTR to be valid. I don't want to give a 5-star rating to a product that is getting 2 stars in the App Store. Nobody wants to look stupid, right? So you want to be right, whatever that is, but that definition is always changing. So there's external validity and reliability that we always are thinking about.
But to Kevin's point, I mean, I think that's what's changed so much about rating, is you now have before you even begin to look at something, you've got crowdsourced by the millions. And I do look at some of these things and I don't know why they gave this just 2 stars. I think it's pretty good. Or I'll read the first 10 reviews and say, this had to be the guy's mother writing these reviews. Because only the mother would love it that much.
yeah, I would say we have gotten rid of the star rating idea. And back in the 90s, with PC Magazine, you had 87.5 or 89.5, and then you got the star because of that. We have abandoned that in our review process, just not only for small apps, but for larger scale sort of software integration projects. We'll look at it over the course of months. So it's like, well, and we'll ask them to blog about it. We call it the long review. So speaking of Pearson, we had Pearson put in 80 seats of SuccessMaker software into a school, and we tracked it over that. And the other element of that was, at the end of the school year, the school had to decide whether they were actually going to buy it or not. And I think that might be the true metric, because you give people free pieces of software to play with and say, yeah, this is pretty cool. And you say, well, it's going to cost you, your student $20 a head. And they say, that's not that cool. So that's kind of a metric I think that we might be able to use in the future, is like, if it's that good, then you're going to have to pony up for it.
Yeah, it's affordability is a piece of it too, and what families are going to buy, what are they going to actually buy and put their money down on? That's part of it too. I mean, if it's a great product, really terrific, but it's $100, not that many kids are going to play with it because of that price point barrier. So looking at that as a piece.
I was just going to respond to your point about the plush. So I wouldn't argue that you should put the technology, the screen in the plush, but you should think of the plush as a medium and think of the screen as a medium and rate them for what they're good for. So a plush has the potential to be a projective kind of medium that, it's a lovey for a 2 or 3-year-old. Exactly. So if the screen gets in the way of the other function, then it gets a very low.
Says a guy with 2.5-year-olds.
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, you can do things with the screen around social emotional development that a plush can't. You can do perspective taking, you can do empathy, a different cognitive aspect of it. So you don't want to mix them together and get the worst of both. You want to separate them when they need to be separate. But don't rule out the screen for social emotional.
Oh, I agree. I'm separate.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. I agree.
So, next question. We sat here last year and we had some, or maybe it was the summer, but we had some long involved conversations about what has the App Store done for you lately? And is discoverability, I mean, I kid around. Is there somebody that you follow, rating reviews, that you believe in more than others? Are you skeptical of just about everything you read that's a review these days? What are the stores doing for you? What I hear from app developers is, yeah, Android's great if you don't want to make money, and the iTunes store is great, but discovery is really hard. And so I'd love to hear a reviewer's perspective on the stores and what you see happening, and what you see happening in terms of aggregated sites that might make some of this easier for everybody. Warren, you want to start?
Well, I love the database ability. You can do quick research really quickly on keywords and find stuff. And what I try to do is, I'll go in and look at what Carolyn Flexer has done in DuckDuckMoose. If you type DuckDuckMoose, or if you type, and then I look at other apps that come up or in their category, and I triangulate and say, I don't know who that is, and so I use that. So I was looking, I use the search engines, which is why I got so excited by the Amazon Fire, because I started to find, started to triangulate and say, oh, there's life in the Android space. And that was
Why don't you
news
talk about
issue.
how that works? I don't know, do people know?
Well, Google Play is an important place to go. You should definitely watch it, because there's a tsunami coming of other content, and people who want to break out of iTunes and start to make money. And Michelle Crippinelli talked about this. The number of devices in pockets, you have to remember that, and what are kids, from a kid's view. And we're going to MediaTek. Kids don't all walk in with an iOS device. And there's a lot of people in developing countries. So this is a lot bigger than one market. And so you want to be there.
Chris, are you rating the stores at all?
I mean, a lot of what I do is, like what Warren said, I go through and I'll search a certain topic and then see what comes up, and then look for what are the related apps that are new to me. And then I'm also, being that I'm working with kids, I'll ask the kids as well, what are you seeing, what are you playing with? And if they give me a topic from that, then I'll use the search engines to see what I can find for apps or for games that would work. So, but we have 1,200 apps that we get coming across. So trying to go through and review each one and look at them, you do need to kind of fine tune. And I look at, okay, what am I doing now? What's the subject that we're going to be talking about? What are the kids exposed to? What's their interest at this point? And then the long term, over the course of a year, or course of time with the students that I work with, what is sticking? And then why is that sticking? And then what apps will relate to that?
Here's a little dangerous experiment. Aaron?
Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. Do you ever read a review about an app before you use it? Or go, take the microphone and tell us how you buy things. A little reality check here.
Well, if it's a free app, I'll look at a few ratings. I'm more interested in the description. I'm more interested in what the people making it have to say. When I'm going to buy a game, now, I don't really buy games all that often, so I like to do my research. I'll look at reviews, yeah.
Yep. And also, if anybody hasn't seen the way Darren presents his apps, with a piece of himself as a part of it, so that you know something about the author. I mean, I laugh about this mobile apps and Last Gadget Standing, but the idea is sort of like the high school play, that these companies should come up and bare their souls and act a little silly and showcase their philosophy as much as their work. And Darren does that incredibly well in his apps, and I think more and more people will be rated on, I'm going to call it storytelling, the story that goes around, that surrounds the app and the product that you're building. And you're even seeing big companies. Thanks.
No problem.
And hardware, you read, right? You read reviews and then beg for money, right? I think I'm going to throw this out to audience questions.
Yeah.
Is this a good time to do that?
Yep. I want them to rate us.
Yeah. Or I can ask the audience. The other thing that we haven't talked about in the rating schema is the whole gamification notion, giving out prizes, giving out badges, giving out rewards, giving out anything to keep a kid's time on their app. Good idea, bad idea, what's working? Somebody talked a little bit last night about parents not opening up progress reports, but they'll open up a picture that their kid has drawn. So what can we do to make the whole gamification thing, which is powerful, score higher on the ratings?
Yeah, how are you all working kids regularly and reliably and responsibly into your critique processes?
Okay, we'll take it down the line.
Well, mine is daily, because I'm in the classroom with the kids and we talk about it within the school. So I walk around with one iPad throughout the whole school, throughout the whole day, and I'll ask kids if I just hand it to them and see what they open up, see what they try. And then within the classroom, we have certain times where the kids have opportunities to interact with the apps. So I'm constantly, my iPads are in the hands of the kids, so I'm getting feedback from them. And then I, pass my judgment based upon what they see and then how I interact with it from the teaching perspective, what I think they are actually getting out of it.
And Yogi Play, I think, uses people who know kids, for one thing. So if you've already looked at thousands of apps and taught thousands of kids, you have a pretty good sense, but then you double check a bit. It would be wonderful to have a lab. Warren, you do a great job with this, of doing thorough kid testing, always.
Try. You can never do enough.
Yeah. So, but after a while, some experience, you get a pretty good sense of what kids would like, and then you double check with some real kids.
That's a great question.
That's a good question. We have folks all over the country who happen to be experts in any given field. They also are parents, and what we send them, be it an app or a toy or magazines or the other products we rate, those are all tested with kids, with families, with parents, with grandparents, all together. So we do a lot of it. Because if the kids don't like it, forget about it.
I'm in New Jersey, forget about it.
Right.
Forget about
The only other thing I would add is watch the mommy market. And I'm going to lump them together as mommy bloggers. We do a show called Mommy Tech. I find a lot of them on Twitter. They're let's just say they have a loud megaphone, and they're incredibly vocal. They range in talents and capabilities in terms of reviewing, but Moms with Apps, there's some fabulous work going on. My mom's trying to encourage other moms, and they have a loud, big footprint, and if you're interested in feedback, and that feedback going viral, just track the mommy bloggers on Twitter.
Sorry, the Moms with Apps has I think it's a self-regulated badge that they use, and they ask developers to check off whether or not there are in-app purchases, whether they're compliant. So take a look at that too. I think they've done is there a Moms with Apps here?
That's in your handout packet.
Oh, sorry.
There's a
We did that homework.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just reinforcing page 12.
Very good.
We're unfortunately kind of hamstrung when it comes to using student reviewers between policies at school districts, as well as some of the policies we have with their own publication, who owns the rights to this or that. So more often than not, we're getting feedback from the educators saying how their kids responded to it, but we don't have too much of the kids themselves. That being said, I have 3 beta testers at home who do the review for me, and so send your stuff.
I rely a lot upon the reviews of companies like Children's Technology Review, and I review a lot of those, and the kid testing. I go to kid testing, I watch kid testing, and then just the mommy bloggers, what they're saying about it, what's happening, and then actually playing with the products myself. The trade publications don't have the resource of having their own in-house testing of kids, so we rely a lot what's happening. So I look for that from other people as well, and just kind of aggregate that, and also look for what are the trends in society, what's happening in storytelling, what's happening in the friendly space, what's happening in technology. And that's why going to a lot of these conferences helps too, because then I get to listen to the experts and hear what they have to say, and then pull that into what I'm doing.
I've made a living out of being a good kid. So when I start an app, I play with it. I turn into a kid, or any device. And I try to... Hi Renee, how you doing today? It's the old short microphone cable trick. One of my daughter's boyfriend was telling me new ways that the boys are using to put their arms around girls. It's scary. I used to just use the yawn, but the old short microphone. Hello, darling.
Earbuds.
The kid testing is your white balance for me. I mean, if I'm a camera and you do a white balance, you put things back in perspective. And every day I try to remove bias, because we all have bias. So I try to strip away. It's like, did you know that big companies can actually make good products? Like Disney can make great stuff. I mean, awesome stuff. But I have we all have a bias. We want the little guy to succeed or whatever, everything else. But kids are the white balance. So I say, watch children. They will guide you through this whole process. They always do. That's a constant. They're not going to change. And you have to consciously, fortunately, if you're like Jimmy, you live with them, or Kevin, some of the best products have come from people that have children. And Mark was inspired by his son's use of a Nintendo and said, boy, the kids will guide us through this. And so tuning into that, and I think reviewers have to really always understand and stay relevant, because if you don't, you get irrelevant very quickly.
Yeah, and I think more and more, actually, there's huge opportunities all over this space, but I can see a YouTube, and you see it where Jimmy has his channel and Susie has her channel. They are the arbiters and the creators of the content. Also, I fully expect Aaron to have his own newsletter of reviews, like tomorrow. So I think there's huge opportunities for people that want to aggregate good sources of information and trustable sources and valid sources. And that's why I think putting a piece of yourself in your work and adding that validity is so important. More questions?
We have time for one more?
Question?
Or comment?
That was the other one I was interested in, is sometimes when you see reviews, you kind of go, that reviewer just didn't get it. And I wish I could talk to that reviewer. So maybe here's your chance to talk to the reviewer and ask them, they like to review us, and they always like to say, you can do a better job if you do this and do this. So here's our chance to help them out to do a better job. And so think about advice you give them of how they maybe can do a better job. But you had a question?
Oh yeah, it's off topic now. You want to answer that one, or?
Go ahead.
Just building on the trustworthiness, how do you guys feel about what's going on in the App Store, and how much of the app reviews are trustworthy and how much of it is spam? And it seems that may be becoming more and more of a problem. What's your view of that?
I love it. I love the people lying in the App Store as a reviewer. I love it. Keep flooding your products with your own reviews, because you decrease the validity of iTunes and Amazon. Keep decreasing it, right, Claire? Because what we offer is validity. That's what we're selling, is our validity. So.
But part of digital literacy, to your point, I think, is developing a nose for that. I read our blog comments, and the ones that say, I love what you're doing, and that's where it stops. I pretty much know that, and then I can look at the URL that it comes from, but I can pretty much guarantee that those sort of no content free, even if they sound I'd love to say, love what you're doing over and over, but it does. It devalues the credibility of my site, because everybody can see through that. And that took me a while, I think it took me a while to understand.
It's hard to turn them down.
But it's so worth it. If the comments, I could use 5 more likes, You know, and
That's right.
we've devalued the like to, you know, beyond silliness. And so I think there will be new systems of trustworthiness that emerge as the old ones get flooded. It's always sad to see because, you know, I thought Facebook and friending and liking really made sense until it became so abused. And as for reviewers, I will say, so when I ran PC Magazine, I said to all my editors, I would say, you have to build a product and bring it to market, or you will not be able to do anything. So I built, Barb remembers, watches. They were, for the election, it was I forget who it was, Kerry and Bush.
How quickly
And
you forget.
they waved their arms. They had a third arm that waved, and it was called the Election Watch. And I tied it to a website, and when you bought the watch, and there was no digital anything in this thing. This was a photoshopped arm on a thing that waved, and I had to go talk to China and buy bands and buckles, and had to get an intermediary, and I made packaging, and I made a website so that when you bought a red watch, it showed, and when you bought a blue watch, and it actually Newsweek picked it up, and it did really well as a side project. But to anybody who has ever brought a product to market, a reviewer needs to respect that to the utmost, because it's not just being a great programmer or a marketer. It is a combination of so many things that I think reviewers forget to look at.
Just a quick, oh, here we are.
Uh-oh. Over the table.
You're just trying to be close to Claire, aren't you?
Here you go.
Yeah, I think the marketplaces are not good. You learn that the first 12 reviews are friends and families of the developer. And if you have the time and inclination, you can, you know, think about it in terms of media literacy. But realistically, for parents, that's not going to happen. I mean, that's why there is a place for Warren's work and Common Sense Media and Yogi Play and Kindertown and all of those. I think what would be good to see.
And I can make a more informed decision. And so I think we should all, even though it takes time, is put our voices in when we like something and why.
So any more advice for the reviewers?
Hi, thank you first of all for all the work that you do to review all of our apps.
I can't see you, by the way.
Right. I have two frustrations with getting reviews in general. The first frustration is that when we get a review, we take it very seriously and immediately begin thinking about changes to our app. And so we work very hard. We put out an update right away, and with the hopes that we're going to improve the general opinion of the app. But oftentimes the review doesn't get changed, edited, updated, even if we make major changes, drastic changes to address the issues that are concerned. So that's just a real frustration on the part of the developers. So I just wanted to kind of share that. I'm sure that you're aware of it, but I wanted to kind of highlight that. And then the second frustration I have is that...
So just address that real fast.
Okay.
Be vocal. It's like if you got a bad grade or a bad test, go to the teacher and say and complain, because squeaky wheel does get the grease. And that's my advice. But go with the second question.
That's good to know, because I don't want to...
Don't be afraid.
I don't want to be that person,
No, be that person, because
All
it's
right.
important. You should, because what was the second one?
Okay, so the second frustration is I'd love to see more specific kind of badges and seals of approval. Sometimes you kind of get this is a parent's pick or a rater pick or editor's choice or whatever, but I would like to see more specific. Like if you have an app that focuses on something like collaboration or authenticity, I'd love to see an authenticity seal of approval, or this got the approval for collaboration. And so I think that would help with the difficulty that you all have with your star ratings, trying to put a single star rating on an app. I would love to see more specific badges of approval, because then as app developers, sometimes we might be working on something with a very specific goal. We want to do something for collaboration. We want to do something that is authentic. And then we don't really get credit because we didn't do all of those things. And so I'd love to see some of those badges of approval, and I think it would also help parents attend to, oh, what does authentic mean? What does it mean when it gets the collaboration seal of approval? So I'd love to see that from reviewers.
I have to say, you are absolutely right, and it's partly laziness. it's partly laziness and partly that you don't want to make up so many categories that you become irrelevant. We just gave out the Cappy Awards, and I thought about it, and I said, you know, we know this is for the best product, and this is most collaborative, and this is the pioneer, and I said, oh, but that's so many logos to do. We're just going to do the Cappy Award. And I thought about it, and I said, I know this is bad. On the other hand, next year we may change the categories, and so they become, so we sort of have the same discussions, but it's great feedback, and you have the same things.
Yes, I just lost my train of thought. But to your point, we at Parents' Choice, are working on something that, I don't have it to show, but called the playability scale. And in essence, it's nutritional labeling for toys and games. And it will call out, not with 5 stars, not with crayons, not with books. But when we get there, it will call out all sorts of different things, just as the nutritional label on food and beverage is doing. Some of this, I think, cooperation, collaboration, I think is much more subjective, although fabulous thing to call out, it really is, but I think that's a much more subjective thing to do. We're trying to do it in as measured a way as possible, and I'm happy to talk about it later.
We're kind
Can
of
you
running.
talk about Common Sense and what they're doing? Can you,
Oops, we're running out of time.
Yeah, okay.
No, go ahead.
I just, in all fairness, you know, all voices.
I think the badge for specific areas is a great idea. I think Common Sense, I know, and Yogi Play, and Born in Your Own Way, others struggle with different audiences. So parents as an audience, there are a few parents, and we try to address with our ratings kind of a parent education component. Here's what you might not know about authentic learning or a deeper concept. And as a parent, you might be interested, and that's important. Realistically, it's about 3% of the people. Most parents are really busy, so just a simple number of stars actually communicates. So reviewers who do market research about what their consumers say are going to find out that I don't have time to read all that detail. So it's really important for people like us to speak to multiple audiences, to find a way to give the quick glance that's meaningful and then have the depth that's also there, and to do all that efficiently enough that it's possible to do it. And so something like badges, I think, would be good. If you go to Common Sense, you look at their learning rating, you can go down and find a lot of detailed information. I don't think that many people dig into it yet, but I think, again, that's a direction that we all need to go, and find a way to talk and have relationships with developers where we're speaking the language that you need, what you need to hear, and have that be a different conversation than you know, what we say to parents. So speak to each person with the kind of feedback that they need, basically.
How are we doing on the agenda, Darren?
I don't have a watch.
All right.
I think we're close.
Let's start wrapping.
Can we get one more?
Yep.
Over here, and then I think it's more advice. You don't need a response from them, right?
Just one response. One of the nice things that counterbalances the bad thing of having all these unprofessional raters in the app stores who might have had a bad day and give a 1-star review, if they get it completely wrong, you have a way to report your concern to Apple, and if it's factually completely wrong, you can pull the ad or go back to the reviewer and have them change it. It would be, I think, for professional reviewers, it would be great if we, as developers, had a way to get our advice back to you, perhaps in the same way, or a similar way, to say, we don't want to dispute that you didn't like our app, but here's a couple of things you might have missed. And we're all a little bit concerned about wanting to be like that squeaky wheel and say something and complain, but if there were a way that we're encouraged or a way to do it, I know you don't want to send them in advance because that may affect your journalism. At the same time, checking the facts ahead and making sure that the reviews are accurate gives people out there who are reading reviews inaccurate things. So as someone who gets their app reviewed, the only real frustration if you get a reviewer who really loves your app but completely misses something and writes an incorrect statement to the world out there, and then they look for that in your app and it's not there, or vice versa, that it's built there and it's beautiful and it's missed. And it just seems like there ought to be some easy way for dialogue. That's all.
No, I think it's gotten better. last words, I wouldn't discount audiences that aren't reviewers or mom bloggers. Think about analysts that look at this industry. Think about VCs, think about MIT Education Review. I mean, there are the parenting magazines. There are so many unexpected places. And when you are writing to them to present your app, I think the ones that resonate have a story with them. You know, as lame as the story is, you know, I had a 3-year-old and this was the problem. It's something that, it's sort of like writing your college essay, something that sticks out above the other college essays, that grabs the attention and even does some thinking for a lazy journalist. Like, you know, there are 22 apps that say they'll make you a better artist, and here's what you should be thinking about. And so it's very appreciated from a reviewer. Any other last tips?
Yeah, we're going to try to time travel 30 minutes back.
Oh, good job, Darren. That's good.
So if anybody has a way to do that.
All right. Thank you, Robin.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, panel. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks.